There we go. Excellent. All right, we'll get started. This is session 6A. We've got 3 separate topics today. In this session, I'll introduce each individually at the start of each of the presentations. My name is Justin Schuler. I'm with Ari Smith in our Brookfield, Wisconsin office, and I'll be moderating the session today. Our first topic is titled Access Management Visualization Tools. This first session, our topic will run as a panel discussion. So we'll get a short presentation from each of our panel members, and then we'll have a Q&A with the audience and kind of look for feedback and information from the audience as well. The phrase, picture says 1,000 words, I think will really apply well on this topic. So our panel members today include Kristine Connolly. She's a senior engineer at Kittelson and Associates, member of the TRB Access Management Committee, and she helped develop the updated NHI Access Management course. We also have Frank Broen, president of Teach America, a firm specializing in communicating challenging transportation topics, easy for me to say. Serves as webmaster for the Access Management Committee, secretary of TRB Visualization and Transportation Group, and communication coordinator for TRB Data and Information Section. And then finally, we have Stuart Samberg, project manager at RK&K, serves as research committee chair for TRB's Access Management Committee, and adjunct professor at George Mason and University of Washington. That's everybody? Excellent. All right, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. So I've put together a few different types of visuals that we use frequently to present either the results of a project or some specific access management concerns. And I'm not going to give a ton of background on the projects because that's not what this is for, but can probably answer some questions about it if you're curious afterwards. So, long story short, there's a truck stop in New York, and this is the existing site where it says property easement. There's a proposal to construct a building. As you can see here, these are the truck paths for vehicles to access different areas of the site for different purposes. And we also produced another visual for the truck paths, and which most of these were coming northbound, and so this is their sight lines as it exists today. With the construction of that building, 4 of the 5 sight lines are now obstructed. So this was actually a case for the property value of the site going down with the construction of this building within the easement. So we put together 2D and 3D models in order to visualize that site obstruction. And so here's the visual from today for a vehicle traveling northbound on the road to access the site. And with the construction of that building, this just shows the impeded lines of sight for 4 of those 5 areas. Let me see if I can make this work. No. Let's see. Perfect. Okay, so the videos work. This was my biggest fear this morning coming to the conference. So with the 3D models, we ran these trucks through the site to show how their paths are changed and impacted by the construction of the building. So this truck would have gone in that first driveway without that building there. Because of the cue from the signal you saw, he couldn't turn there, so now he's going back further into the site. He or she. There are female truck drivers. And in red, orange, brown, whatever color that is there, that is sort of a private property, do not trespass area. So they're actually being forced to go onto someone else's property. And here he turns into the gas station. All right, and what you're not seeing from this view is that the turning radius to get into the fueling position there is inadequate. So we put together another video. Did that go to the next one? No, hold on just a second. There. Here you go. From a different angle. So now you've got the driver perspective. And you can see some of these aspects a little better through this video. So here he's coming up on the driveway. Turns in. Oh, look, there's where I'm supposed to go to the left, but the queue of vehicles, I can't get in there. I would usually fast forward here. This is going to become, here, we'll take this opportunity for a question.
What software are you using for this?
I'm pretty, oh, I'm sorry. So what software are you using for this? That's a very good question. This was done by someone other than myself, but it's, I believe it's just CAD 3D. I'm gonna get back to you on that one. I come at this more from the public involvement perspective of how it can be useful in getting the results that you desire from using these. So for this particular case, it was in favor of the truck stop, and the building was not constructed. So here's where you see that part where this truck can't actually turn into the stall. Okay. Here's another project. This one I was intimately involved with, so I can tell you a lot about this one. This is the new NHI Access Management course actually is going to present drone footage of the case study corridor that's being presented through the course. And so in order to do that, we actually hired this out, although since doing that, we have become certified. Kittelson has become certified to do this work themselves. We have a few licensed drone pilots. But this only cost about, I think we ended up $850 to get someone out here to take this footage. So the cost-benefit analysis of that one, I think, is pretty clear that you can see all of these accesses from a perspective that makes a lot more sense to somebody, especially somebody who's not a traffic engineer looking at aerial photography all day. And they can see what some of these access scenarios are that might be an issue, like this driveway that's right where the diverging onto the ramp there. I'm not doing this right. Okay, and then one other method that we've used drones for is to take a before photo and then create an artistic rendering that shows the after condition. So this is an intersection in Hidden Springs. And here's that after condition, which is done through CAD. So you have that. This is exactly how it looks today. You haven't gone in and done a rendering of the existing condition. It's an actual photo, which I think is valuable. There's less to argue about if you do it that way. And then there you go. You've got that rendering of the future condition. See, that's all I have. Does it go directly to, or Frank, are you next?
All right.
Look that up? Okay.
So thank you for the opportunity to sit in on this distinguished panel. I'm looking forward to exploring the best ways to create effective visualization that will improve our transportation system. So visuals are important because people remember 80% of what they see but only 20% of what they read and 10% of what they hear. If our goal is to create effective visualization, I'm going to suggest 2 objectives and 3 strategies. Each slide should clearly make 1 point. To do that, keep it simple. Show a memorable visual, present the content consistently, and use color effectively. I've given myself 10 seconds per slide to point out examples of the best practices from previous conferences, as well as pointing out poor examples of what to avoid. Most of the questions people have are, where is the project, what will it look like, and how will it impact me? The best visuals to use are effective maps, photos, and data. I like these maps. They're simple and clearly show where the project is located and how many driveways per mile currently exist. I give it a 5-star rating, along with the level of service and where people work and live. They're consistent and use color very effectively. This map may have a lot of info, but unfortunately the color contrast makes it very difficult to read. It's a little better up close, but not really the best practice. On the other hand, this map uses color to put the project in context with major improvements clearly shown. You can see that there were a lot of conflicts before and a few after, but the maps could have been grayed out and the arrows simplified to make this point a little bit easier. Now this map shows how access management improves accessibility to jobs. This is a thumbs up. Photo matching is one of the best techniques to show what a project will look like in the future in a way that most people clearly understand. Before and after photos are also extremely beneficial and can be used to show different alternatives and support informed decisions and discussions. Again, this photo match shows what is there, what will be removed, and what is proposed. Conceptually showing how the same place can be used to achieve a much better community, this graphic rocks. You can really see what's going on. Now there might be a point to this graphic, but it's not clear. Too much information, just keep it simple. This combines the best of everything: a clear message, consistent layout, and good use of color. One word about 3D graphs: don't. There's never a good reason to make a simple graph 3D, ever. In 10 seconds, can any of you spot which roads might have the biggest crash problem? That's a powerful data example. Tables are easy to create, and this tries hard by using color and even little bars, but falls short of really being good. Now there's a lot of information in this visual, but it's clear, consistent, and has just the right amount of color. Again, a lot of data, but beautifully executed with both the clear map and data that supports the understanding of the issues. A lot of information to be put on this map. This visualization does a very effective job of showing both the existing context and the proposed changes. Now this might not immediately grab you, but when you actually interact with this piece of paper with your transparent design guide, this is a very effective visualization because it's interactive. Again, a lot of data, but the phases are clearly shown in the timeline, and color helps point out the major events and how much outreach happened. So that's a lot in 4 minutes. Make 1 point in each slide, keep it simple, use art, layout, and color to create effective visualizations. And if you want my help in the future, here's my contact information.
So hopefully my visuals don't break all of the nice rules that Frank just laid out for us. This is a pretty, we think this is a pretty effective graphic. We've had a lot of success with it. we're really just trying to show what the predominant crash pattern is. You tell people angle crashes or, for left turn crashes, but this clearly shows who's getting hit and where and what the movement is. In this case, it was actually the through movement. So pretty effective tool. This is the standard conflict point diagram, but a little bit customized for the intersection we have. One thing we've run into is you throw the diagram out of the access management manual and we hear, well, we have a multi-lane roadway or we have this off the approach street. So just customizing the conflict diagram to match what we're looking at specifically for the site is useful. And then again, we just circle the same image. So tying that first image of the crash pattern with this, we think is a really useful tool, has been very useful for us. Stealing images that are publicly available, very highly encouraged. Also tends to lead to the ability to say, we got this from wherever, and find that the public will go do some research on their own. They don't always come to the right conclusion, but they will at least come a little bit more prepared to have the discussion. This image in and of itself isn't great, but it does show, because we've highlighted in yellow, where the proposed changes to the intersection are going to be. So at a very high level scale, you can capture all of the potential changes in one image. Here's, again, we're just showing changes in travel path, and we've got a couple other ways we've done this, but just showing you used to go this way and compare it with an image that says now you're going to go this way. We tend to give them the information about how much longer that might take them or how many vehicles it might affect a day, but just trying to get that point across in as simple a manner as possible. One of the things we really have struggled with over time is how to show people the difference in how they're going to move. And so in this case, you can see we're going to identify that last car, and we're going to show them how, through a more sort of traditional R-cut configuration, you can actually speed up the travel time through the corridor or for their movement. And so I'm not going to spend the whole video here, but the long story short is we've identified a car, we're tracing the car through the model, we're giving them a time, and then we come to the next one and we'll do it again, and we'll show in the super street configuration, again, we'll identify that vehicle, we'll keep the clock going, and it's always the same vehicle. So we can show these two models show these two videos side by side. We can show them, one after the other, but at the end of the day, there will be a total number. It took you X time in this configuration and X time in this configuration. So just trying to simplify that message as much as possible is really what we're trying to do. We talked a little bit, this is just another form of a simple travel path diagram. So you can see sort of the old blue dashed line, that's how they're going today, and then sort of the nice thick blue solid line to show what the proposed path is. So again, just want to run through these real quick, but these have been very effective tools for us in going through all of the studies and projects we've done in just identifying to the public what's changing, what their impacts are going to be, and how to convey that message.
All right, we'll start the Q&A session. Love to hear some experiences from the audience, some of your successful ones, some of the challenges, any questions. For recording purposes, just raise your hand. I'll bring around the microphone. We can talk there. But I can get it kicked off. Worked on a handful of access studies like this, made some exhibits. I'm not all that technically savvy. Most of my work's been in PowerPoint, but I don't know if the other panel members can maybe speak to some of the softwares they've used from exhibits or...
Is this working? Okay.
Yep.
I did get the answer to your question while these gentlemen were presenting. It's Adobe Premiere Pro. So that's what we use to put those videos together. What about the modeling? That's what I'm curious about, your simulation with the vehicles.
So I mean, the vehicle simulation side, we're doing either vsim or transmodeler, just sort of client dependent. And then for the most part, a lot of the other ones, we either do them just in CAD because we're just building them off the design files. Other than that, I will not claim to know exactly what our graphics folks are using because they just sort of make these nice looking graphics that I don't have to worry about. But I know, for certain ones like the conflict diagrams, we're getting graphics folks to lay those out so it's sort of bigger, cleaner than we can put together in CAD.
Yeah, so the Adobe Creative Suite of products is at the heart of what most of this, so Adobe Premiere is part of that, Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, but bringing in that CAD information and being able to overlay it. And then there's a whole suite of 3D tools that are out there now. And then bringing in drone photography is quite a cool and relatively low cost way of getting information, so yeah.
Thanks. Anybody in the audience has questions? I'll come around.
Yeah, I have a question for the drone application. You show the videos, but you said a company did that for you. Because I know that in Alabama, there's a law, you cannot fly drone over intersection with a moving vehicle. So I don't know how that company get permission to do that for you. Okay.
Yeah, so they actually got authorization to take all of that video. So that was totally official and on the up and up. You actually noticed that at a certain point it switched directions. There was a segment in the middle that they weren't allowed to fly the drone, but that was due to proximity to an airport and flight patterns there.
Some other application for drone is you can fly over intersection like 100 or 200 feet above, and you cover entire picture for intersection. So I had my student did that for intersection 15 minutes, and you see all the car movements, and also the student very smart. The developer algorithm can estimate the control delays by computer video analytic, whatever method to estimate control delays, instead of using the highway capacity manual or some simulation tool. So I think a drone application may be more than just look the access point and other things. There's many other applications for the drone video.
Yeah, I think just to expand on that for a second, I mean, I think you could do the same thing we were using, at least for the existing condition, the same thing we're using vsim to do. You could do that with the drone footage so that at least when you're comparing to the existing condition, you're using a real vehicle and real video. And then, you're still going to have the simulation to compare the build condition to, but at least in the existing, it's going to be tough to argue the length of time it takes if you're showing tougher to argue.
And I also had an interesting conversation with Doug McLeod, who was pointing out that the Highway Capacity Manual may in the future become a planning document because there are so many good tools to actually figure out what is going on now. You don't need to run a calculation, you go get the data and show it, but that the Highway Capacity Manual will be useful for that what if, alternative scenarios, and how do you actually plan. So that I thought was an interesting shift.
I think in general, from a public involvement standpoint, showing is better than telling. You can tell someone that the capacity is X at an intersection. Show it one step better. Now we have the capability of showing it in real life instead of a model, and so that's even better. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. I haven't actually, other than your example, I haven't actually seen anybody use it or suggest it yet, but I think that's where things are going.
Anyone else? Question?
Any of you could answer this. Is it common then in your firms that it's a graphics department that's doing this, or individuals and someone's just like, that's their niche and they love doing it, so they do it most, a combination of all those things? Or how much do civil engineering students or planners coming out of school need to know how to do this?
So I would say of the 10 new graduates I've hired in the last 5 years, let's say, half of them really love doing this and they want to do it right away and they've got a niche for it, and the other half would really just prefer I never ask them to do any sort of graphical work ever. Some people are really good at it. I think more often than not, we do have a graphics department, but we're trying to use a lot of the CAD-based or the stuff coming out of the simulation models really as our base. For one, it's just easier for us, to be quite frank. So I think, you know, the advantage of the CAD application, the only extension I would make is that we have gotten into a lot of taking the CAD into GIS, because a lot of the younger folks that I have coming out of school are much more adept and just sort of seem to know how to use GIS applications. And that's also a useful tool, because you can go to a public meeting and pull up a website and zoom into somebody's house and show them how it's going to directly impact them. So I think that's another direction we didn't really talk about yet, but I think in general, I'm finding the folks coming out of school have either they have the knowledge or they don't.
I can give kudos to Wisconsin, which actually has a visualization group, one of the probably best of DOTs out there, that they seem to really value being able to show people what's going on and show them the information. So they have a group that does an extremely good job. They're pushing the edge of, ultimately visualization should be that you can start with a simple 3D model that you would continually improve as it moves through PD&E and into design, and that visualization is not something that you do just to show the public and that's the only purpose for it. It's actually a design tool that you use because that's what you're doing. There are regulatory problems to that. It's hard to sign 3D documents yet, but that is certainly what the Visualization Committee is struggling and looking to push the envelope to say, that's how we should be doing things. That would be of benefit to the future, that that you can pass off the data from the software in one stage to the data in another stage, and that the 3D models that are generated are publicly useful, so that you don't have to completely redesign New York City every time because you happen to live with a different, be working for a different firm. So that's kind of the future of that. More questions?
Yeah, I think a lot of these image can be reused or shared. If the Google has an image search, can we create like a subgroup like access management? Or because sometimes I show in the class all the animation small videos on the DDI. There are a lot already there. So I don't know if there's a subgroup. For example, if I want to get an image on the 4-leg intersection, show the 32 conflict point. So if you want to create that image, it takes a long time for your graphic people to redo that. But there are already many out there. So if we create some kind of database on the Google image subcategory, access management or geometry design related image can be reused, I think that will be useful. Just my suggestion.
Real quick, I think that's great for anything that's been prepared and is available to the public. I think there are a lot of things that maybe have been prepared for a private client, and they have ownership of that item. So unfortunately, sometimes you do have to go out and reinvent the wheel and do something over again, because when it was done the first time, it was done for a client and they own it.
Yeah, that's certainly one of the, just because it's available on the web doesn't mean that you can use it. When you do use it, you should actually provide, the source from where it came from. That's just good ethics to be able to do that. Sometimes hard to, you do have to make sure that you're tracking and tagging that. I will say that all of my good examples, I showed where they came from, and if I said that wasn't good, I just kind of left that information off because I did not want to. Now, what was also interesting is some of them came from the same presentation. So, I was just trying to show some basic principles that, to look at. But your point, ultimately with the Access Management website, I would love to see something like that happen. We just need to get a little bit further down the road, but I think that would be great. It will also be interesting because we will be adding YouTube videos. There are a bunch of YouTube videos out there now, so this is just a little bit of a side. We are recording videos of this conference, and instead of them going out in a Flash-based program as they've been in all of the past conferences, we're going to be loading everything to YouTube. And one of the reasons is to actually make it more searchable, and the intent will be that from YouTube you can get back to the website to be able to find more information. And then as the tools inside the website, and that's part of what we're trying to do, is get this faceted search so that you can help find things visually. Once we've got everything else working, the visual component will be an interesting thing to see what we can do. Ideally, you'll be able to search on topics and then find information that gets you back to YouTube that would get you the kind of visuals that you're looking for.
I've got a meeting with my state DOT at the end of the month is what prompts this otherwise nagging question. How much how much time until the YouTube versions of this conference are out there?
That's a good question. I'm relying on Wisconsin, so I don't know exactly what the answer is. Some of them you will start to see stuff next week. How long it takes to get absolutely everything up, but starting next week is the answer to your question.
All right, we'll take one more.
Yeah, I like the before drone photo, and we started using the drone more too. And in a lot of cases, we were always flying it like after the project to get some post photos, and then you find out about some access issues after the project, and we always wish we had that before photo. So now, whether we think we need it or not, we often go and fly it. And just so we have those before photos, and then can put that comparison to the after in the after effect. But as far as like I touched on like cars and people, so you can't fly over cars and people, but we do just use the spotter, and you just wait for a gap basically. So once there's a gap, then you can go. Now in a really urban environment, that's kind of tough. Sometimes you can't fly in those areas, but in the semi-urban or rural areas, then you just look for the gaps, and then you can go and pick up those areas in the drone.
All right, I think we're about time. So, have any other final comments? Good. All right. Well, thank you.